Random crash course on just basics of compression and EQ. First off to start, I just got this Dirty South sub that I want to add into the song, right? Clearly clipping. Clearly in the red, as you see. So first things first, we have compression. Let me teach you what compression does and how it works. In Reason, it's got limited knobs compared to other compressions. Like some compressions have extended things. Some compressions are even less. On Reason, the basic compressor has an input gain that's literally just a volume knob. So the signal of the sub is getting sent through the compressor, the sound, and it's going to the input gain first. You see, turn it up, turn it down. That's just setting a volume precedent, gaining it before it starts compressing it. Next is the threshold, what I like to call it, the ceiling, the top limit of where you're aiming to compress the sound down to. So Reason starts off at negative 17.9. The ratio is how hard it is pushing it down, the amount in which it is compressing it down to this threshold ceiling. Reason has it like a 4-to-1 ratio. It pushes it with the intensity, I may be completely wrong on the details here, but this is how I understand it. With the intensity of like a 4-to-1, like 4 times the sound, but to my knowledge, it's like, you know, a 2-to-1 ratio. Oh, like nothing. It doesn't compress it at all. And as you do it, as you increase the ratio, this is the ceiling of how much. To me, this is what the ceiling, the volume ceiling looks like. And as you increase it, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way up to infinity, then it's just going to automatically push as hard as it can to keep it at the ceiling you set. But see, if you set a lower ceiling, it gets quieter and quieter and quieter until you get, you know, negative 36, which is where the Reason taps out, I guess. Threshold is the target, ratio is how hard it goes toward the target. Exactly, J Pizza. So as you increase the threshold, and then if the threshold is a 0, then you're literally probably only using the compressor for gain. Now, once you have the threshold that you like and the ratio that you like, I usually like my basses to be around there. And there's also soft knee, which I usually keep off, but I assume it kind of like more gently pushes it to the threshold. It's not that complex. I hope you're understanding where I'm coming from already. So the bass is going through. I go to the input gain. I'm actually going to set that at 0. I'm just not going to let that do anything. The threshold is at negative 19.6-ish. You know, you decide where you want the ceiling to be. Like, as you see, if I turn it up, it gets louder. Turn it down, it gets quieter because it's squeezing the volume of it down pretty much. I'm going to put it where I like it. It's right about there. A little bit over 4, 5, 6 ratio. What's next is the attack and the release. The attack is how fast the compressor pushes down, and the release is how long it pushes. So if your attack is at 1 millisecond, it's going to immediately push it to that ceiling. So let's put the ratio all the way up for a second just to get the full ceiling. If your attack is at 1 millisecond, it's going to automatically, and sub-frequencies have louder volumes. That's why the lower subs are pushing it harder, because sub-frequencies are way louder and way more prominent in a mix. So I'm going to pull it back. And so the attack is literally taking 1 millisecond for the threshold and the ratio to kick in. 1 millisecond. I generally like it in the middle so you can get kind of a punch of a kick drum. As you can see, the attack is kind of taking it like 50. If I put it all the way up to 100, it goes whoop. You see, whoop, because it's taking a while. The smaller the attack, the faster it works. It's just pretty much like how many milliseconds is it going to take to read where the threshold ceiling is and how hard it's going to hit on the ratio. Attack speeds it up or slows it down. Taylor Morgan in the building with the 3 months. What's up, Taylor Morgan? And so the attack is how fast it comes in. And so next you have the release, and that's how long it lasts at the compressed moment. So here, the release is in 327 milliseconds. The attack is pushed onto it at this ratio with this ceiling, and then the release tells it how long it's going to hold on to that ceiling before it normalizes. If the release is at 50 milliseconds, it just pushes it down and then just holds it. If the release is long, see, this is not really a good example of a sound to show the release, I think. I usually have adapt release on. It's pretty much like how long is it going to hold really tight at that volume threshold is release. Attack is how fast does it come in. Release is how long does it hold on. Oh, no, actually, forgive me. I think it's how long after you let go, maybe. People use compressors as gates a lot to put volume ceilings. And then after that, there's clearly just an output gain, you know? Just add more or decrease volume, you know? You could say this threshold is a little too tight. Let me take this compressed sound and then turn it up. So whenever you see like waveforms that are just bricks, it's because they compressed it and then turned it up. So it compresses it into just a flat brick with not a lot of variance, and then turn that up to the ceiling. So it's just a brick. You know what I'm saying? They're like chopping the tops and the bottoms off of like the details. And then so it becomes like a square because it's just like, you know what I mean? And then they turn it up to hit the ceilings. So that's compression. Pretty standard, pretty standard. Next, we're gonna go into EQ. You should use a graphic equalizer if you can. It makes everything a lot easier. If you're in Ableton, EQ8 is great. I know Logic has a really good graphic equalizer as well. Make sure you turn on Analyze so you can see the waveforms and kind of adjust accordingly. Reason has a really cool EQ called Spectrum EQ. I'm just going to turn it off so we can start from scratch. It's called Spectrum EQ. It's only 4 bands. I really wish we had infinite bands or more bands in general. You can never run out of bands. Call me a festival, you know what I'm saying? If you look at the sub frequency, it's just a sub. That's it. I honestly want to put some distortion on it so that we can more accurately change frequencies, you know what I mean? And show what it looks like. Let's turn the cut off. I'm just gonna put a distortion on it so we get some more stuff out of this sound instead of just the sub frequency. Maybe a little bit of chorus on there. We can discuss those effects on another video maybe. So there's a distorted ass bass right there. Really good, honestly. Reason's patch Dirty South sub. Reason has the best preset instruments in the game, I swear. So I listen to this and I say it's a little too, like, pretty much when you're EQing, you want to listen to something and kind of hear, kind of single out. There's what Reason's 4-band thing has kind of instilled in me is the 4 zones. You have low mid, you have high mid, and you have high. Of course, you can break them down into subsections as you see fit, but that's really the 4 low, mid, and high, to be honest. But breaking down the mid from low mid to high mid is very important. All right, so first we're gonna go in the low. Let's just do a flat C, okay? This is the big boomer frequency. There's also high pass and low pass filters. High pass takes out low frequencies and it pushes it toward the high. See what I'm saying? Low pass will take out the high frequencies. Essentially, when I do anything, I put a little high pass on there, but with subs and kicks, I like to keep all the low frequencies intact because they do a lot of different things. So here's that. You see how it sounds. You see how it looks. If I just go ahead and cut this sub frequency, you're going to hear it immediately. Or not as much, actually, because it's sub. Sub frequencies, you need kind of better headphones or bigger speakers to hear really. But as you turn it up, and see it's even modulating my vocal because it's so much sub frequency. So the sub frequency is the one that you can't really hear. I like to turn it up. LOL my speakers, exactly. We're showing all the ranges of audio here. So it's actually at a pretty good spot. I like it to be really loud on a bass because essentially with electronic music, it's all bass music. The reason electronic music is so good is because you can get extremely low bass frequencies and really just make that bang. So now we're going to look at the low mid, which is going to guide on Reason. It stops at around 200 hertz. The low frequency goes from goes up to 600 from 40. And down here is where I'm looking. If you can't see the hertz changing. By the way, hertz is just the horizontal line of sound frequencies. So 40 hertz is super sub low. 6.75 kilohertz, which is, 6,000 hertz, 6,700. Just think about it like kilograms and grams or whatever. I'm going to break down all the zones, okay? In my knowledge. From 80 and below is kind of low bass and sub. The 160 to like 300-ish range. And that's kind of like where the kick drums boom, like the and stuff like that. And also just very deep melodic like frequencies. Yo, Bo Burchell, thank you for the fucking raid. How is it going? You were creating a new sales and intro? I was not sure if it was you or not. I know, like, Jesus Christ, legend in the chat right now. Guitarist of Seosin, how is it going, Bo Burchell? The reason we're talking about EQ and compression is because the sub bass in the song, I pitched the beat down with bass frequencies. A is kind of the low cutoff point before it starts sounding a little farty, at least with electronic subs and everything. I distorted this, so let's turn off the distortion for a sec. See, this is A. So see, everything under A. A is like the lowest. So you have to go up an octave for it to actually have tone. Sorry, it's kind of breaking my vocals. So C, it's getting pretty low. B, it's getting lower. B flat getting lower. A getting lower. A flat. See, it just starts having that little hiss. Because it's just like not really providing much tone anymore. The bass notes used to be like, which ends at A, which is, again, in my opinion, the lowest frequency on basses before they start sounding 40. When I pitched it down 2, it brought it down to a G. It brought it down to where there's no tone. So what I wanted to do is bring a bass in there to kind of bring out those notes a little bit, like low key, like really low key. And obviously when I was playing it in the song, it was way too loud. So we talked about compression, the input gain. I have the threshold at negative 23 point. Flex with another 5 gifted in the building. What I'm doing is I'm putting the ceiling at negative 23.8 with a ratio of about 6:1. Attack of 52 milliseconds, release probably less even. And then the output gain is what's doing it. So I'm going to turn that output gain off. Also, I put a distortion on because we're talking about EQ now. The notes I would probably hit would be, but that is way too loud. Way too loud. The song itself is very loud, so you can't really add too much sub frequencies. It's already got the sub. So what I want to do is take out the lowest sub frequency in there with a high pass filter. High pass filter again is just sliding out those low frequencies. Right? I want this tone to hit because what I was saying is the G is not providing enough tonal information because it's so low. So I'm considering getting a little tone on it. So there's the low frequencies. As you can see, this is the tone. That's the sub part of it. Then we have the low mid. Here, I'll turn it way up. It's kind of where the low mid range is on Reason. From 200 hertz to 2 kilohertz, which is 2000. If you really want to know what a frequency sounds like, just turn it all the way up. So there's also this thing called Q. So I have E mode on Reason. If you turn E mode off, as you see, it becomes way wider. On a EQ, there's 3 main components. There's the frequency, which is where it is like horizontally on here. See the frequency in the bottom middle here is going up, like right here. It's going up as I move it up, you see? So we have that first. Then we have gain, which is how much you're turning it up or down. And low frequencies don't have it, but on the mid faders, they do have a Q. I know Chaz Bear loves Reason. Oh yeah, you goddamn right.
I don't use Ableton actually.
What do you use?
Reason. That's what everyone says. I use Reason.
Where are you making beats at? Fruity Loops?
No, Reason.
Oh, Reason.
Yeah.
I actually don't usually put a low cut on my sub, but I am in this instance, so I'm trying to give it tone in that low G. You know what I'm saying? See, as I turn it up, low mid frequencies, if you turn it all the way up, you can hear. And as I was saying, you have frequency, which is horizontal across the spectrum, gain, which is vertical, like how much you turn it up or down. See, frequency is left to right, gain is up or down, and then Q is how tight you have it. So as you can see, if I turn up the Q, it's gonna like tighten it up, and you open the Q, it's gonna widen it out. And then Reason has an E mode, which tightens it up even more. So if you really want to hear what frequencies these, like this is 200 hertz. So that's just me moving the low mid fader. So if you're listening to something and there's a frequency you don't like that you want to EQ out, but you don't know where to go with it, like you look for it by turning it all the way up and then move it left to right. Find the frequency you don't like and then turn it down in the EQ. You know what I'm saying? So I don't want those. I don't really want that. I don't really want the subs either. I really just want the tone so that you can tell it's a G, because that G is so low in the beat, but I love the sub. I want the sub. So after that, we have high mid though. I'm gonna keep everything up just so we can listen to how it changes. So then we have high mid, which pretty much low mid, but instead of being low, it goes higher. You know? And then we have high, which on Reason, it's set up as a shelf, which means it hits the peak of its rise. Like if you turn it up, not the peak, not quite the peak, but I guess in the middle, it shows you what's being turned up. It's being turned up here, and then it slopes down, and it even turns down some of the highs because it's kind of like bending up and down. That's how shelves work, like a shelf EQ knob. So if you're using Ableton, you can click on it and you could do the one where it's like wide out. You could do the one where it's like a little ribbon. The one where it's wide is a shelf. And as you turn that up, this turns down. Like as you turn that up, I guess not with a high shelf, more with a low shelf. The high frequencies, you know, you can hear it. You can hear what's happening when I turn up the high frequencies. Instead of a shelf, Reason allows you to change the low and high EQs to bells. You can see for yourself what happens. It like squeezes the Q such a high amount so that you can just provide like a really detailed cut or gain. Like if you're just like, I want this frequency, just, you know what I'm saying? So in a nutshell, that is EQ and compression. That's really all you need to know. Compression really sets a volume ceiling and gives you parameters of what the ceiling is, how hard it's going to hit the ceiling, how fast it's going to hit the ceiling, and how long it's going to hold on to that ceiling, as well as giving you an input gain before you do that and an output gain after to turn it up or down. EQ has low, low mid, high mid, and high. Lows are generally at a shelf, which means it occupies a wider range of impact. You can also change it to a bell on Reason to where it is a very tight range of impact. Low mid frequencies control the lower mid frequencies, and generally as also a bell, but a very wider bell. And you can increase and decrease the Q to tighten it up or widen it out, turn things up or down in those frequencies. You can hear where they impact right there. High mid, same thing, except you can get a higher range out of it and control the higher mid frequencies. High, same thing. It's on a shelf usually, and Reason lets you change it to a bell. On EQ8 or anything else, you can change anything to a bell and anything to a shelf or a filter that you want or anything like that. And that's compression and EQ, pretty much.